Edmunds went through every trade-in in America last quarter and published the 20 vehicles where people owe the most money they do not have. The Toyota Tundra sits at the top of that list. The average owner who walks into a dealership with one is $8,929 in the hole before the conversation even starts. Right behind it, the GMC Sierra, the Silverado, the F-150, the Ram 1500. 5 of the 6 biggest dollar losses in the country are full-size pickups. Those are supposed to be the trucks that hold their value. That is the entire argument for buying one. I spent the last week in the federal recall filings, the lending data, and the auction numbers. And what is happening out there is not a nostalgia story. Nobody is buying a 2016 truck because it reminds them of something. They are buying it because the arithmetic changed and the engineering changed, and both of them changed in the same direction at the same time. So here's what we are doing today, why millions of people are backing out of new trucks and buying something 10 or 15 years old instead, whether they are right. And then the part that actually matters to you, which is which older trucks are worth owning, because most of them are not, and the wrong one will cost you more than the new truck would have. If that sounds useful, subscribing costs you nothing, and it is the only reason I can afford to spend a week reading recall documents instead of reading a press release out loud. Let us start with what returning a truck actually means, because there is no return counter. You cannot bring a pickup back the way you bring back a lawnmower. What people mean when they say it is one of 3 things: they trade it in and eat the loss, they hand the keys back to the lender and take the credit damage, or, and this is the quiet majority, they never get rid of the old truck in the first place because the new one stopped making sense somewhere between the test drive and the finance office. The numbers behind that are not subtle. Edmunds found that in the second quarter of this year, nearly 3 out of every 10 people trading in a vehicle toward a new one were underwater on it. The average shortfall was $6,884, a record for a second quarter. And when somebody rolls that debt into the next loan, their payment lands at $944 a month against an industry average of $777. That gap is $167 a month forever for the privilege of driving a different truck. Over the life of the loan, those buyers are projected to pay $16,270 in interest alone. That is not a car payment anymore. That is a second insurance premium you are paying to a bank. And it is not happening because these people bought junk. Look at that list again: Tundra, Sierra, Silverado, F-150, Ram, Tacoma. Those are the models everybody points to when they tell you trucks hold their money. Edmunds said it plainly. When the safe residual bets are showing up underwater, the problem is the financing, not the vehicle choice. Here's the free thing I want to give you before we go further, and it is worth more than anything else in this video. Any used truck you are looking at anywhere, before you talk about price, put the vehicle identification number into the federal recall lookup on the government site. It is free. It takes about 90 seconds on your phone, and it will tell you every open safety recall on that specific truck, including whether the work was ever actually performed. A dealer is not required to volunteer that. A private seller usually does not know. And on the trucks we are about to discuss, that 90 seconds is the difference between a good buy and an engine. It is the only free opinion in the entire transaction, and it is the one nobody hands you. That is one check. The rest of them are into the book I put together, the 500,000 miles Car Care Bible. The Mechanic Decoder section lists the 30 things a shop will try to sell you, whether each one is real, and the sentence to say back. There is a printable 20-point used truck inspection in there too. $27, less than most shops charge just to put it on the lift and look. Code on screen, link below, or carcarebible.com. Now, why the arithmetic broke. The average full-size pickup transacted at $66,427 in June, according to Cox Automotive. The whole new vehicle market averaged about $49,000. So the truck segment is running roughly $17,000 above everything else, and that is the average, not the loaded one. You do not have to buy the average. A Ford F-150 XL starts around $37,300. A Silverado work truck is under $40,000. A Ram 1500 Tradesman is about $42,000. Those are real trucks and those are real prices, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. But run the F-150 XL all the way out. $10,000 down, 5% money, 5 years, and you are at roughly $550 a month. Then add what Repair Pal puts at $788 a year in maintenance, what Car Edge puts at $2,414 a year to insure it, and about $2,950 a year in fuel. All in, that cheapest full-size truck from the big three costs somewhere around $1,063 a month to own. Sit with that number for a second because it is the base model. Experian says the average new vehicle payment hit $777 in the second quarter, an all-time high for the third quarter running. 1 in 5 buyers is now paying over $1,000 a month for a vehicle, and here's the part that should stop you. Nearly 24% of new car borrowers signed a loan of 84 months or longer, 7 years, on a machine that carries a 5-year powertrain warranty. Do the subtraction yourself. 2 full years of payments after the coverage runs out is now the normal deal, not the desperate one. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York has total auto debt at $1.69 trillion, and Fitch Ratings has subprime borrowers running the worst 60-day delinquency rate since they started tracking it in the early 90s. Prime borrowers are fine. The pain is concentrated exactly where you would expect it to be. So that is the money side. And honestly, if that were the whole story, this video would be about interest rates and you could go watch something else. But it is not the whole story, because at the same time the payments got impossible, something happened to the trucks themselves. Put the numbers down for a minute and let me tell you about a bearing. Inside your engine, the crankshaft spins on a set of soft metal shells called bearings. The crank never actually touches them. It rides on a film of oil about as thick as a human hair is wide. That is the whole trick. That film is the only thing standing between a smooth running engine and a very expensive noise. Now imagine a few microscopic metal shavings left over from the factory machining process floating in that oil. The shop guys call it swarf. One particle gets between the crank and the bearing, the oil film breaks, metal touches metal, heat spikes, and the bearing wears through. When it seizes, the connecting rod stops and the rest of the engine does not. Sometimes the rod comes out through the side of the block. Hold that picture because you are about to hear it 3 times from 3 different companies on 3 different continents. General Motors. In April of 2025, they recalled roughly 597,000 trucks and SUVs with the 6.2-liter V8 over exactly this: contaminated connecting rods and crankshafts machined out of specification. In their own filing, GM counted 28,102 complaints and incidents, and more than 14,000 of those involved the truck losing power. The remedy was an inspection. Engines that failed got replaced. Engines that passed got thicker oil and a new service procedure. Then the engines that passed started failing anyway. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opened a query in January of this year to look at whether that fix works at all. As of this week, that investigation covers 997,000 trucks and SUVs, model years 2021 through 2026. What it found is 499 reported engine failures after the recall repair had already been performed. The overwhelming majority of those were trucks that got the oil remedy. 26 of them had a brand new replacement engine. Read that last part again. 26 people got a new engine under a safety recall, and the new engine failed too. The investigation now reaches into 2025 and 2026 trucks that were built after GM's own cutoff date. That does not mean every truck with that engine is bad, and I want to be fair about it. It means the federal government is no longer confident. The company knows where the bad ones stop. Toyota, same physics, different building. The 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6 in the Tundra has now been recalled 3 separate times for machining debris, damaging the number 1 main bearing. May of 2024, November of 2025, May of this year. Over 270,000 trucks and SUVs. Owners describe it as sudden, usually while towing or climbing, usually with no warning light, usually with no restart. Toyota replaced more than 70,000 engines. Credit where it is due. That is not a small commitment, and most manufacturers would have fought it. But this June, they changed the remedy. Instead of replacing engines, dealers now run an inspection that strikes the engine and reads the resonant frequency to judge whether that bearing is already damaged. So Toyota engineered a bearing, then had to engineer a way to find out which bearings it had already ruined. That is a complete circle, and I do not think anybody at that company is enjoying it. Ford, different failure, same message. Last year, the company issued 152 separate recall notices covering 12.9 million vehicles, close to double the previous record any automaker had ever set. By early March of this year, they were already past 7 million more. The two that should matter to a truck owner are both transmission related. In April, nearly 1.4 million F-150s from 2015 through 2017 because the sensor signal could drop out and the transmission could downshift into second gear while you are driving. In June, another 741,000 vehicles because the park POWL could engage while the truck is moving. If you are getting value out of this, hit subscribe. Nobody sponsors a video that tells you not to buy anything, so the channel runs on people sticking around. Now stop and notice what those 3 stories have in common, because it is not brand loyalty and it is not politics. Every one of them is a tolerance problem, a bearing clearance measured in thousands, a sensor signal, a software calibration that decides which gear you are in. Modern trucks make more power, tow more weight, and burn less fuel than anything we had 20 years ago. And they do it by running everything much closer to the edge. That is a genuine engineering achievement. It also means the margin for a bad batch of parts is almost gone. The man who bought a truck in 2006 was buying a machine with slop in it. The slop was the warranty. And that brings us to the part nobody puts in the brochure, which is what this complexity costs you for the entire time you own the thing. Take a windshield on a 2023 F-150 with heated glass and a rain sensor. You are looking at $650 to $900 because the camera behind that glass has to be recalibrated afterward, or your automatic braking is aiming at the wrong part of the road. boat. CCC, which processes collision claims for the insurance industry, found that as of the end of last year, 28% of all repairs now require a calibration of some kind. That adds anywhere from $300 to $1,500 on top of whatever the actual repair was. None of that existed on a truck from 2010. A windshield was a windshield, and the average repair bill in this country is up 33% since 2021, sitting around $838, which tells you the direction of travel. So here's the honest summary of the last 10 minutes. New trucks got more expensive to buy, more expensive to finance, more expensive to insure, more expensive to repair, and at least 3 of them got demonstrably less predictable at the same time. Every one of those pressures pushes in one direction, and people are not stupid. They followed it. Now, if you are still with me, the next section is the one worth taking notes on, because this is where most people get it wrong. But first, one thing that proves the market already figured this out before either of us did. Ram dropped the Hemi V8 from the 1500 for the 2020 model year and replaced it with a turbocharged 6. On paper, the 6 is better. More power, better fuel economy, a modern engine in every measurable way. Buyers hated it and sales fell off a cliff. Ram's CEO went in front of the press and said, and I am quoting him, that Ram screwed up when they dropped the Hemi. They own it and they fixed it. They brought it back for 2026 as a $1,200 option. 10,000 orders in the first 24 hours. Dealers reported the first one selling in 5 days on average in a market where a fast-selling vehicle sits for 40. Last year, Stellantis took about 50,000 Hemi orders and could only build about 30,000 engines. They are now targeting more than 100,000 V8s. That is not enthusiasts on the internet. That is a company reversing a strategic decision in about 6 months because the customers refused. And it tells you the preference we are talking about is real, and it is large. Hold on to that, because it tells you something about the used market too. Everybody wants the simple engine, which means the trucks I am about to name are not secrets, and you will have to be patient to buy one right. All right. Which old trucks? And this is where I have to be blunt, because the internet is full of people telling you that everything built before 2015 is bulletproof. And that is nonsense that will cost you an engine. An old truck with a known bad engine is a worse purchase than a new one, because at least the new one has somebody else's warranty on it. Age by itself buys you nothing. What you are actually shopping for is a powertrain that has been in production long enough that the problems were found and fixed on somebody else's dime. Start with the F-150 and the 5.0 Coyote V8. Ford has been building that engine since 2011 and has revised it repeatedly. No turbochargers, no intercooler, no high-pressure fuel system to go wrong. The 10-speed automatic behind it had calibration trouble in 2017 and got sorted out after that, which is why the sweet spot everyone who works on these lands on is 2018 through 2020. The prices are real too. Kelley Blue Book puts a 2019 F-150 Super Crew XLT at roughly $21,000 to $24,000 private party, with trade-in value around $15,500 to $18,000. And here's the number I keep coming back to. That truck has lost about 16% of its value in the last 3 years. 16% in 3 years on a 7-year-old truck. That is the whole argument in one figure. The depreciation already happened to somebody else, and what is left is a slow bleed instead of a wound. Whatever you pay for it this month, you get most of it back. Now, the Toyota Tundra with the 5.7 iForce V8, which ran from 2007 all the way to 2021. 14 years of the same engine. 14 years of Toyota finding things and quietly fixing them. IC cars ran the odometers on almost 400 million vehicles to work out which models actually reached 250,000 miles, and the Tundra came out first among all non-heavy-duty vehicles. For context, the average vehicle in that study has under a 5% chance of getting there. Pickups as a group run around 13%. The trade-off is honest, and you should know it going in. That engine drinks fuel, the interior is plain, and because everybody knows about it, you will not steal one. Toyota tax is real. But if you are the kind of owner who intends to still have this truck in 2040, that is the one I would go looking for, and it is my single strongest pick in this entire video. The Silverado and Sierra with the 5.3 V8 and the 6-speed automatic, roughly 2014 through 2018, belong on this list too, with one specific caution. That engine uses cylinder deactivation, and the lifters for that system are a documented weak point. If you are looking at one, you want service records, and you want to know whether the lifters have ever been in. A truck with that job already done at somebody else's expense is worth more to you than a truck with fewer miles and no paperwork. Here is the shortest and possibly most useful entry on the list. If you do not actually need a full-size truck, and most people who own one do not, look at a 2019 Nissan Frontier. J.D. Power scored it 87 out of 100. In 7 years on the road, it has had a single recall for a reverse camera, and it logs roughly a quarter of a complaint per 1,000 trucks sold. It was the final year of a platform Nissan had been building for 15 years, which is exactly the point. There was nothing left to go wrong. Now, the avoid list, and it is short and specific. The first generation 3.5 EcoBoost 2011 through 2016 has well-documented timing, chain, and cam phaser problems. The 2018 and newer Ram Hemi has a lifter issue of its own, so the same caution applies there as the Chevy. And any GM truck with the 6.2-liter V8 from 2019 onward, you do not touch without the recall paperwork in your hand showing what was done and when. That is not me being dramatic. That is a federal investigation that got bigger this week, not smaller. So let us do the actual arithmetic out loud the way you would at your kitchen table. Option 1, the new base F-150 at about $1,063 a month, all in for 5 years. Option 2, a 2019 F-150 with the V8 bought for around $24,000. Say you finance half of it. Your payment is a couple hundred. Insurance drops because the truck is worth less. Fuel is the same. Maintenance is higher. Sure, call it $1,500 a year instead of $800 to be safe, even in a bad year where something real breaks and you write a $3,000 check you did not plan on. You are still under what the new truck costs you in the same 12 months. And in a good year, it is not close. That is the calculation Americans are running. And the proof is in a place most people never look. Pickup modifications now account for roughly $15 billion a year in aftermarket spending. $15 billion going into trucks people already own. The average vehicle on American roads is now 12.8 years old, the 8th straight annual record. That is not neglect. That is a decision made a few million times, one driveway at a time. Now, let me argue the other side honestly, because you deserve that. If you live where they salt the roads, the frame is the whole vehicle. A rotten frame on a mechanically perfect truck is a scrap truck, and it does not matter how good the engine is. Get underneath it or get somebody to. If you tow heavy for a living weekly, the new trucks are genuinely better at it, and the safety improvements over the last decade are real and measurable, and I am not going to talk you out of them. And if a surprise $3,000 repair would actually hurt you, understand what you are trading. A payment is predictable. A repair is not. There's a real argument for buying certainty even when it costs more. And anybody who tells you otherwise has never had a truck die in the wrong week. So here's where I land, and I will be specific about it. If you own a paid off truck that runs and the frame is solid, keep it. Do not let anybody talk you into a trade this year. Take what you would have spent on a down payment, set aside $3,000 of it for repairs, and put the rest somewhere it earns something. If you are shopping, I would buy a 2018 to 20 F-150 with the 5.0A V8, or a 2016 to 2021 Tundra with the 5.7. And I would not pay over $28,000 for either of them with under 100,000 miles. Records or walk away. Recall check before the test drive, not after. If you are underwater on a new truck right now, and a lot of people watching this are, do not trade it. Trading is how $6,000 of negative equity turns into 11. Keep it, drive it past the point where the loan and the value cross, and get out then. It is not a fun answer. It is the one that costs you the least. And if you want a new truck anyway, buy one. Just get the out the door number in writing by email before you ever drive over there, and know that pickups are one of the few segments where the incentive money is still running heavy right now. Ram in particular is sitting on 127 days of inventory. That is leverage, and it is yours, not theirs. Where this advice runs out, I do not know your frame, your climate, your mileage, or your tow rating, and there are good trucks I did not name because I did not have hard data on them. This is a starting point, not a verdict on your driveway. One thing to do this week, whatever truck is sitting outside your house right now, new or old, run the vehicle identification number through the federal recall site tonight. 2 minutes. Some of you are going to find an open recall you never got a letter about, and every one of those repairs is free. Then tell me in the comments what truck, what year, what mileage, and what the last dealer offered you for it. Put the actual number in. I read those, and the numbers you all report are frequently better data than anything I can find published. If this was worth 20 minutes of your day, subscribe, because next week I am going through the cylinder deactivation systems in detail, what actually breaks, what it costs, and how to tell if yours is already on the way out before it makes the noise. And if you want the whole system written down, the maintenance intervals, the shop scripts, the inspection checklist, it is all in the 500,000 miles Car Care Bible at carcarebible.com, link below. Take care of the one you have got.